And so I learned how to like talk through things. And I think because of that path, I learned not to do what my parents did.
Yeah.
But I still stuffed a lot of things down because I was still trying to make sure I didn't rock the boat. And that went into school, into work, and all those places. And I even did it with my kids
Mm.
because I had both of my older siblings left home when they were in their teens. Um, and so I always saw that if I rocked the boat, if I stood up for myself, I might have to leave. I might get left behind, or I might feel like I have to leave the home. And so I didn't rock the boat anywhere. And even with my kids, I would be like, oh, I can't make my kids too mad or else they're going to leave.
Yeah.
And it took my oldest, who will be 28 next week. I think she was around 19 or 20 when she told me this, but she was like, you don't have to worry about us leaving. I'm going to start tearing up. She's like, you don't have to worry about us leaving. You know, we're not, it's okay for us to be mad at you, and it's okay for you to be mad at us.
It's beautiful that she had the maturity to say that.
This.
Do you remember me? I am the part of you that is wise and alive, that is pure love and beyond your limiting mind. I am the you that is inspired, the you that is creative, the you that has true power. Are you ready to remember you?
Hello, and welcome to Remembering You, the show. I am your host, Ellie La Liberté, and I am a published author of 2 spiritual books. And this show is associated with my new book, Letters from You to You, Awaken Your Power Through Conversations with Your Higher Self. This show is about reconnecting to your power, the truth of who you really are. The guests on this show are authentic human beings who have stories to share with us about how they navigated through difficult challenges and illnesses, and also how they uncovered the higher part of themselves. May you feel inspired to go into your own healing journey and remember who you really are. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Remembering You, the show. My name is Ellie La Liberté, and today I have a special guest with me. Her name is Tenya Eickenberg, and she is from Maryland, USA, and she's going to share with us a story of hers around her healing process and whatever happened in her life, challenges that she had. And I'm very excited to have her on the show and get to know her at the same time. So welcome, Tenya, to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and how are you doing today?
I am doing really well today. It's beautiful out. It's nice and sunny and it's not humid, so that's always good.
Nice. So, so I just wanted to know a little bit about you, about your story, and how you went into your journey of rediscovering who you are and remembering who you are. So, let's get into it.
Beautiful. So my story really, I think, starts I mean, I think all of our stories start from birth. I was born into a family that already had 2 kids. My dad is my mom's first husband, and she is my dad's second wife. So he had 2 kids before they got married. And uh, my dad is very quiet, and he always has been. But over the first few years of their marriage and our life, my mom started to develop symptoms of being bipolar and having her own mental illness. And she wasn't diagnosed with that until I would think I was around 7 or 8. And then shortly after that, she was diagnosed with having NF2, which is she gets tumors on her nerve endings in her brain and down her spine. So, you know, it was a horrible time for her. However, growing up in a home where your mom took all of the emotions because she had so much going on, and a dad who had really no emotion, at least from what I can remember, you know, he may have had emotions, but I don't remember seeing them. And so my perception of me growing up was a lot of emotion over here and not so much over here. Where did I fit in with my emotions? I didn't feel like I could have emotions as a kid. You know, there were just a lot of things that occurred that by the time I was 8 years old, I was making sure I was not walking on eggshells, or I had to walk on eggshells around both my parents, I felt like, because any little thing would trigger somebody.
Yeah.
And it wasn't physically abusive. It wasn't mentally abusive. I wasn't ever called stupid or idiot or anything like that, but there was a level of emotional abuse there because there wasn't emotional support. And so I think very, very early on, I decided that I was not going to rock the boat, and I was just going to try to be the quiet one. And so I just kind of stayed to myself, or I would go outside and play, which is funny because I'm the type of person that really does kind of like attention, but only if I ask for it. I do still like attention. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who still love attention that you know, kind of shy away from being in the spotlight. But when I got into middle school, I think it was a turning point. I had to take a class called conflict resolution. And in this class, I learned what conflict was, and I learned how to talk about conflict without there being anger behind it or something like that. Because anger for me was yelling, screaming, crying, things getting thrown. That was anger for me. It wasn't just getting mad. I mean, for me, that was scary. And so I learned how to like talk through things. And I think because of that path, I learned not to do what my parents did.
Yeah.
But I still stuffed a lot of things down because I was still trying to make sure I didn't rock the boat. And that went into school, into work, and all those places. And I even did it with my kids because I had both of my older siblings left home when they were in their teens. And so I always saw that if I rocked the boat, if I stood up for myself, I might have to leave. I might get left behind, or I might feel like I have to leave the home. And so I didn't rock the boat anywhere.
Yeah.
And even with my kids, I would be like, oh, I can't make my kids too mad or else they're going to leave. Yeah. And it took my oldest, who will be 28 next week. I think she was around 19 or 20 when she told me this, but she was like, you don't have to worry about us leaving. I'm going to start tearing up. She's like, you don't have to worry about us leaving. You know, it's okay for us to be mad at you, and it's okay for you to be mad at us.
It's beautiful that she had the maturity to say that.
This kid, I had her when I was 19 years old. And she really helped me to grow up in ways that I didn't realize I still needed to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, collect myself.
Okay.
So yeah, you know, I met my husband when I was 19. After 3 months of dating, we got pregnant, and a year later we got married, and we'll be married 28 years this year.
Wow.
And he was what I needed at the time so that I could move out of my parents' home, so that I could continue on the path of self-discovery and self-healing.
Mm-hmm.
But it took another 20 years for me to realize that I needed to rediscover who I was. I fell into that mother and wife role very quickly, and I loved it. I really did love being a stay-at-home mom and, taking care of my kids and taking care of my husband and making sure that everybody was happy. But I didn't realize that I was doing it at my detriment, to the point where it just kept building up and I would stuff it down, and it would build up and I would stuff it down, because that's what I knew. And so 2018, fast forward, kids all graduate. 2018, our twins graduated high school. My husband and daughter graduated college. We bought our forever home off of the Chesapeake Bay here in Maryland. And we were going to be empty nesters. All three of our kids were moving out, and it was just going to be the two of us. Was great for a couple of weeks, and then two of the kids moved back in. But then, you know, we moved, and then it was Christmas, and then it was our first winter, you know, on the beach. So we had all of that excitement of what, you know, winter is like at the beach. And, you know, probably by summer of 2019, things had started to slow down, things had started to calm down, in life. And my anxiety and depression were like, it's our time.
Yeah.
Now we get to have her. It's our turn to be paid attention to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just like, wait a minute, I'm done raising my kids. I don't want to have to deal with this.
Mhm.
And but they wouldn't go away.
Mhm.
And through that time as well, I had to set up boundaries with my mom and tell her that, you know, I wasn't going to respond to any more emails or phone calls where I was feeling manipulated or bullied or put down. I just wasn't going to do it. So she cut off communication with me for a few months because she just didn't want to talk to me.
Mhm.
And so I had to deal with that as well. And by time COVID hit, by March of 2020, I was like, I really need to get some help. And so I took the traditional route at first. I called, you know, my insurance company and found a doctor online, because by this point, you weren't going into doctor's offices unless it was an emergency.
Yeah.
And so I met with a doctor that I didn't know, to get on prescription medication. The appointment was about 15 minutes long, and he didn't ask very many questions.
Hmm.
And I didn't trust him enough to answer some of those questions honestly.
Mhm.
So when he asked if I felt like I was a harm to myself, I said no. But in retrospect, I was thinking, gosh, maybe I should just drive my vehicle into a pole just so I could have some time off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was so afraid of what would happen if I answered that question honestly,
Mhm.
you know. And then with the talk therapist, it was like every appointment I had been to with a therapist before that. You know, the first few appointments are, let's get to the bottom of why you think you have, or why you have depression, or why you have anxiety. And it was just having to keep replaying all of the tragedies, all of the trauma that I had, either created stories about myself or others, but I just had to keep like reliving them, and I didn't want to do that anymore. And at the 8-week appointment, when I told the psychiatrist that, you know, I just feel numb.
Mm.
Like, I don't have the bad, like, I'm not sad anymore, but I'm not really not happy either.
Mhm.
Like, I'm just, ugh. And he's like, okay, well, maybe we need to raise your medication.
Mm.
Why don't we try doing that? And we'll see you back here in 6 to 8 weeks. I was like, I'm done with this roller coaster. I'm done. I want off. I want off. I want something that is going to get rid of this for good.
Yeah.
What is going to get rid of this for good? And so I went to Google, Dr. Google, and I said, you know, find me something that's holistic for emotions, and then it's healing. So I typed in holistic emotional healing, and this modality called the emotion code came up. And it is a modality of releasing trapped emotions by using muscle testing to find out first if you have the trapped emotion. And then you use a regular magnet off of your fridge, swiping over the top of your head, over your governing meridian. and setting the intention to release that trapped emotion from wherever it is or whatever age that you got it in. And I was like, oh, okay, I was a little skeptical. All right, I'm going to use a magnet off my fridge to get rid of how I'm feeling. All right, let me, what do I have to lose at this point? Right? Because nothing else seemed to work. And so I did a session with a couple practitioners, and I felt really good after each session. It didn't last. It wasn't like an overnight thing. It didn't last a long time. It would last a couple of days, and then I would start to feel like crap again. And I'm like, maybe this isn't working. But then I'd have another session and it would work. And then it would last longer. You know, it would last maybe 3 days, and then I'd start to feel down again. I was like, all right, maybe there is something to this. So I went to one of their webinars. Because it was COVID, their webinars were like a third of the cost of going to one of their conferences. So I went to the webinar, and by the end, I was like, I'm signing up for the certification. I'm going to learn how to do this myself. One, because I want to learn all the ins and outs of it. And two, if I need to do a session every week, some of these practitioners are going to cost me a lot. Because, you know, we don't take insurance. It is definitely an investment in your health. And that's how I invested in my health, was I was going to learn how to do it for myself. And now I know why. It was so that I could learn to do it for other people as well. But by the end of my certification, I was like, okay, give me the next one. So I signed up for the next certification, and then I signed up for the next one. And I got to the point where I didn't need the magnet anymore. It was just, I could just find what it was, find out when it was. And usually a memory would come to mind as to, oh, I know exactly where that's coming from. And then I could let it go. So by the end of 4 months, it took me about 4 months, and I was about 80% healed. I was like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good. But there were still moments where I was like, it's not completely gone. Like, you just know when something's still not right. And I had joined this coaching program, and the coach was always saying, you know, you guys need to meditate 20 minutes a day. You need to journal. You need to exercise. And this is when I first heard what self-care was. And I was like, okay, so just sitting there doing nothing is self-care.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I kind of feel a little guilty not doing nothing. But, you know, and like writing my thoughts. So I had not written down my thoughts in any form since I was probably 13 years old. My mom had opened up a letter that I was sending to my sister who had moved out, and read that letter, called me home from school, and then wanted to talk to me about what was in that letter. There was some stuff in there that a 13-year-old shouldn't be doing that I was telling my sister. But again, it was my private thoughts. It was my private stuff that I was sending to somebody else. So I felt very violated in that sense. And I never wrote anything down again as far as how I was feeling. And so I was very nervous about journaling again. But I also knew that I was in a home now where I could safely do that. I knew my husband wouldn't go looking in my journal. I knew my kids wouldn't go snooping through my journal. So I felt much safer doing that now. And then exercise, you know, just walking. But there was so much more. I started to dive into what exactly self-care was. And I realized that it was deliberate acts that you do so that you can sustain yourself throughout your day. So that you can sustain yourself enough that if you need to help others fill their cup, yours is already full. Exactly. And that's what self-care was. And that was something that I had dabbled in over the years. I can remember taking my kids to the gym and them not wanting to go into the childcare room. And I would say, but mommy needs you to go and play with the other kids so that I can work out, so that I can be there for you. Like, I knew it when they were little, but I didn't pay attention that I needed to always do it. and I needed to teach them to do it.
Mhm.
So 2 months into starting to do self-care, by the end of December, by the end of 2020, I was 100% healed.
Nice.
I say that I am 100%, I have been clean of chronic anxiety and depression for 4 years.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it has been absolutely amazing. Do I still get sad on occasion? Yes, I'm
You
human.
still have emotions.
Right, those are emotions. We're supposed to have those. Do I still get worried? Yes. It's life. I
Mhm.
still get mad. I still get frustrated.
Mhm.
But if you don't allow yourself to feel those feelings, how are you going to let yourself feel the other ones? Like, you have to feel all of them. And they're not good or bad. They're just sensations. And we've been programmed to believe that sadness and worry and fear and anger are bad sensations.
Yeah.
But they're not.
Mhm.
They're just sensations.
Hmm.
And so now I want to help other women to find out who they are instead of just identifying with being ridden with anxiety or feeling depressed or frustrated or overwhelmed.
Yeah, for sure. And as well, like, and not just identifying with their roles, right? Because you're a great
Yeah,
example of that. You were really in your role as a mother, stay at home mom. So it's very inspiring that you could, yeah, this identify from that role and say like, hey, you know what? Like I'm allowed to take care of myself, and that is not selfish too, because there's a lot of people that think that taking care of oneself is selfish when you do have
right.
kids and all of that. So it's really beautiful what you've been through.
Thank you. Thank you. I realized that, even when my kids were little, I would get up early. Like when I wanted to start exercising again because I wanted to lose weight or whatever, I would, in order to get what I wanted to get done, I would get up before them. I would make sure that I went to bed at a decent hour so that I could get up an hour or two before them and get my stuff done so that I didn't have to worry about me the rest of the day. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't want to do. They don't want to adjust their sleep schedule to accommodate their own needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't want to go to bed at 9 o'clock and get up at 5:30 before the sun comes up. But God, that's my favorite time to get up, is between like 5:30 and 6, because I still have, an hour or two before the rest of the house would wake up.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that is also because they feel like that would be something like a habit that you have to create. But when you get into the self-care and all of this inner work, at one point you see it as it's not just a habit, it becomes a lifestyle. This is your lifestyle. So
Right, it's like brushing
it's
your
so
teeth.
natural, yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
it's not a chore and it's not so much effort because
right,
you are just living it every day. And you talk about meditation, like I meditate every day, and it's not because I have to, it's because it's part of me now. Like I've been doing it for
right.
years and I just love it. It's not even like, oh, I have to sit down for whatever 30 minutes. It's like, yep, it's my time to meditate. And I'm not strict with when I'm going to be doing it. I'm really
Right,
just, I know that I will meditate at least once a day, and I've never skipped
right.
it in a long time. So, and because it's my lifestyle, I
Yeah,
just love
yeah,
it so much.
yeah. And for those of you who say that you can't meditate, I call, can we swear on here?
Yes.
Okay, I call bullshit,
Yeah.
because meditation is just about not allowing your thoughts to control you.
Mhm.
So if you feel like you can't sit for 5 minutes and do nothing, journal first.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
sit there if you can't sit for 5 minutes, sit for 3. But start somewhere.
Yeah,
Don't
exactly.
just say you can't do it. Just
No.
start somewhere.
And sometimes the reason why there are people that, have a hard time sitting down and saying like, I can't meditate because there's a lot of people that like to say that they are ADHD and that they just can't sit down because there are too many things going on and whatever. Again, if you're someone who has a lot of energy, well, work out. And then when you're done working out, then it's a perfect time for you to sit down and meditate
Right.
because you just,
Yep.
move your body and energy in there. So you become calmer automatically, right? So
Yeah.
it's the perfect time to do it. So yeah, there's no excuse to not meditate.
There isn't. And some will say, oh, I fall asleep when I meditate. Well, then don't lay down.
Yeah, exactly.
I am the queen of finding my way around things. Finding the way around your excuses.
Yes.
But I've had excuses too. My mom used to teach the kids in our neighborhood when we lived in England. She would teach the kids there teach them meditation. She would have meditation classes for them. And I can remember, all these teenagers laying around in our living room while my mom walked around, talking about meditation and stuff. I was around it when I was a kid, but I was never taught that this is so beneficial to your mental health. Well, probably because they didn't have that knowledge to share.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We can't fault our parents for not teaching us self-care because they really didn't know what self-care was at that time. I mean, it really was not a thing.
No, and it's generation from generation and generation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the history of self-care is it really wasn't started until like the 1950s. And it was typically to send people away who are having mental breakdowns.
Yeah.
And then, right. And then it became more prominent in the 70s from the I think that was the Black Panther organization started a self-care, I'm not sure what they call it, like movement. Kind of like, I don't think they called it self-care, but it was more like you need to take care of yourself. And then it really started to pick up in the 80s, but it's only been the last 70 years that it has been like, hell, maybe we need to do a little more for ourselves. And if you look back in history around the 1940s, 1950s, that's when like things really started to more inventions coming through. A lot of people were getting more TVs. Women were having to go out into the workforce. So there was a lot more stuff going on that people had to deal with.
Yeah, for sure.
That they didn't have to deal with in previous generations. So it's new. Self-care is still fairly new.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Even in 2024.
Yeah, I know. And it's really sad that we as people, because I'm pretty sure men feel selfish about doing self-care as well. Their view of self-care may be a little bit different than women's. But I'm pretty sure that they feel pretty selfish if they go from work to the gym, or they go, oh, I want to go out, fishing with the guys over the weekend.
Yeah.
Sure. There are some guys who are going to feel guilty about doing that, especially if their wives are, if they're partners in their marriage.
Yeah, because they have the sense of being a provider automatically, right?
Yeah.
But we're getting there. I feel
we
like
are.
the world is very much awakening right now. There's a lot of chaos in the world, and that means that people are waking up to who they are a lot more. So this is why we do shows like this, to help people, to inspire them. I want to say thank you for sharing all of that with me.
This episode is brought to you by Remembering You, the coaching program. As a published author of a spiritual self-help book, it was crucial for me to bring to my readers a program that would help them go deeper into their emotional healing and release childhood trauma. This program includes journaling therapy, soma breathwork, and hypnotherapy to help investigate, release, and reprogram. Go to lettersbyellie.com to learn more. And now, back to the show.
So yeah, I believe that we could have like a conversation, all day long. I feel like we have a really nice flow, and it's just been so much fun. Thank you for sharing all of this with us and being vulnerable with your story. And I think that we could probably do another show at one point, because to say. That's amazing. So now is a part where I ask something to all of my guests near the end of this show. And it's related to my book. So my book has 21 letters in it, and all of the letters have titles to them. So I love to have the perspective of someone else when it comes to healing and all of that. I'm going to ask you to choose a number between 1 and 21, please.
I'm going to say 3 because that's always my lucky number.
Perfect. Okay. I will go and check what number 3 is. I'm pretty sure I have a good idea because I'm getting used to getting them by heart there, but yeah, so the letter number 3 is the unknown. So I'd love I'd love to have your perspective on what do you think about all of this concept of really just stepping into the unknown and, you know, just letting go and really being maybe uncomfortable in the unknown, but finding maybe a comfort in there, right?
So when it came to using energy healing to heal from my anxiety and depression, that was a complete unknown. Like, you know, if you can't see it, how can you believe it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So in energy healing, you can't see until you see the results of it. And so stepping into that unknown of, can this work? Like, it's not a pill, it's not an energy drink, it's not a supplement. It's, you know, it was something that I had to have faith that it might work.
Yeah.
And it did work. And if it didn't work, I wasn't any worse off than I was before. Yeah, I had spent some money, but it was just money. Like, money comes back.
Yeah.
You know, I had to step into that uncomfortable, and it was uncomfortable because it wasn't something that I knew.
Yeah.
I mean, my extent of energy healing up to that point was acupuncture, and I didn't even know that was energy healing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sometimes you have to step into the unknown to get the reward. And that goes for everything.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that you were stepping to the unknown as well when, you know, when you started your healing journey as well, like, and realizing now that you had to go into self-care and what does that look like?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, a lot of people think self-care is massages and getting your nails done and, you know, weekends away. And while those are wonderful and they are rejuvenating and they are fun, that's not the self-care that I talk about. The self-care I talk about is really setting time aside for yourself to make sure that you are whole and complete before you start giving parts of yourself away to other people.
Yeah.
Because when we take care of others, especially our children and our husbands and our parents as they age, when we start taking care of others, we are giving a part of our energy away. And if you don't have that energy to give, you're going to start pulling it from places that are going to start leaving you with holes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I can relate, you know, you talked about when you had to put some boundaries with your own mother.
Mm-hmm.
I can relate to that as well with my family, not just with my mother, with my entire family. When I had my awakening more, I had a couple of awakenings, but the the last one was mostly, you know, with COVID and everything, because I wasn't going in the same direction as everybody else with COVID. And at one point I did have to, you know, to put boundaries with my own mother and, you know, with some of the members of my family. And that was very difficult, but it comes with that inner work. You need to respect your energy. And when you do that as well, what people sometimes don't understand is that when you're putting boundaries like that, doesn't mean that you have to put boundaries for your entire life. At one point, because you've discovered this self-respect, you won't need to do it so much more often because now you know what aligns with you and what doesn't align, and you have a voice as well. And people, when you put boundaries at the beginning, it can be really awkward for everybody, but I believe that you get more, you know, respect from other people as well when you actually take this decision and do it for you, because now it's like, hey, I love myself enough to put these boundaries in place, and I will, you know, I will, and it's not even consequences for me, because sometimes people are going to say like, well, you know, you're gonna have consequences with that because there are people that might not want to talk to you anymore, like you said with your mom.
Right.
But to me, it's not consequences. To me, it's this is what love is, and this is what unconditional love means.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, to continue to be ourselves. And if someone cannot accept us as we are, as ourselves, and for the first time, we're actually wanting to be strong into ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be unconditional love, right? And especially from our family. So if there
Right.
are, then
Right.
you're just respecting yourself, and that's. So I think that our people, I love what you said, because I think that sometimes people are afraid to put boundaries, and especially with their family, because they're afraid that they're going to lose them. But sometimes, like what your daughter said to you,
Mm-hmm.
make them even closer to you, because
Yeah.
now they're seeing that you're stepping into your power, and it's like, wow, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And you have to see it from the other perspective as well. If family members put boundaries up with you,
Mhm.
it's you have to respect their boundaries. It's not just, hey, we're putting up boundaries because we're going through our own healing and all this stuff. But if other family members put up boundaries that they think we're crossing, then we have to respect their boundaries as well.
Exactly.
It's two-sided.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we talk about that enough. You know, we talk about having to set boundaries against people, but you know, what if those people are trying to set boundaries with us and we keep crossing them?
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, it does go both ways. So you have to step back and go, okay, am I crossing their boundaries?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we have to figure out what their boundaries are so
Yeah,
that we don't cross them, because they may not understand that they are trying to set boundaries
exactly. They're
and
unconscious
they're
that
not they're not able to
separate.
articulate what their boundaries are.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
So yeah, so sometimes we might have to step away so that they can keep their boundaries.
Yes, absolutely. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for everything. And I would love to know a little bit about where can people find you with all of the things that you're doing and offering.
Thank you. So you can find me at Design Your Existence .com, Instagram, Facebook. It's all the same handle. I do have a journal on Amazon that if anybody is interested, it's a 90-day journal
Nice.
called Design Your Existence. Just search for that and it'll come up. Yeah, check, you know, I offer a lot of healing services, past life regression. I'm working on my program, Project U, which is healing sessions and self-care teachings. But I'm taking the rest of the year to figure out how I want to implement that. Because I don't know how I want to put that back out there yet.
Yeah, we have a lot of
So,
projects that we do us.
yeah, but I have a free gift that I can send you the link for, that you can put in with the show notes that
Yeah,
people can sign up for. It will put you on my email list, but it's up to you whether you stay on it or not. But I do have some free gifts for everybody.
excellent. That's very, very nice. And I will put everything also in the description of the show too, so that everybody
Great.
can find you easily.
Perfect.
So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too.